There was recently a public execution in hip-hop. It wasn't in a rap battle either. On a live SDRM, that is, have you ever witnessed someone enter a ring believing they are the winner, and then exit as like history itself had smacked them? Yes, Jim Jones was that person. And the people who are slapping, oh, simply Benzino, the guy who still believes he controls the culture from a flip phone. And Nas, also known as Godson, the lyrical killer. It was different last night, though. Jim Jones was toasted, roasted and folded like soiled clothes in a Bronx laundromat in front of thousands of people. You believed that price battles becoming untidy? No. This was a live lyrical genocide. What began as a friendly conversation descended into a full-fledged rap intervention, with Nas essentially telling Jim, "You're a feature rapper in a world of classics. You don't belong here." Champ and Benzo. Man was simply refueling an already lit fire nauseum. What actually transpired during that live stream? Then, for what reason did Jim Jones end up looking like an unpaid intern? And why? After all these years of stillness, did NS finally snap? Take out your popcorn. It's a horrible one. Before we analyze the complete dismantling of Jim Jones that occurred during that now famous live stream, let's take a moment to look back and see why this moment seemed like karma eventually. Storming down the hallway of hip-hop justice while wearing Timberland's attire. This is the setup. Then, the self-described street general, Dipset veteran, and man who somehow made shouting into a microphone seem like culture, Jim Jones, decided he had something to say. Regarding nausea. Indeed, Nas, the guy who released Illmatic before the majority of these up-and-coming rappers were even born. You know, the pen game that gave rise to whole generations of lyricists. That nauseous. What was Jim's action? He made the traditional move. He prodded the bear. You see, this whole affair began months ago when Jim casually questioned Nas's influence on modern hip-hop in an interview that no one asked for. Yeah, Nas is cool, but is anyone really checking for him these days? He responded, pausing. Let's all pause for a moment to acknowledge the fallacy in that assertion. That small insult, that passive-hostile jab at a titan of hip-hop. Yes, it was not overlooked. Not by Nas, not by the fans, and definitely not by the hip-hop gods, who, let's be fair, just decided, okay, let's teach Jimmy a lesson. Jim Jones has a history of controversy. Drama is what this man does for a living. The man has been messy, from his personal conflicts, to his breakup with Cameron, to his moment when he pretended to cry about hip-hop and love. Additionally, with the years he spent attempting to convince everyone that he was more than merely Berlin, hadn't even been discussed. Here's the problem, though. Being revered by legacy is not the same as being relevant through antics. Nausea. Hazelways took the long view. He's not a ranter, he is not a tantrum-prone person. You can sense it when he speaks because he looks and leans back. Thus, when he did reply, it wasn't a diss tune, but the internet exploded through a composed, peaceful live stream appearance. Additionally, Nas didn't arrive by herself to ensure that the message was understood. He was prepared. Unexpected support. The type of backup that causes you to reload your screen in shock and double-check the live button. Benzino comes in. Look, you can say whatever you want about Benzino and I promise you that we have. However, when this man feels like getting filthy, he comes up with a front row seat to destruction, notes, and a grudge. The scene was prepared. Thousands of people watched. Twitter is ready to blow up. Screen captures are flowing, and comments are flying. Then Nas said something. It's surgical, not boisterous or irate. You know, some people confuse volume with value. Just because you shout doesn't mean you have something to say, he remarked, glancing into the camera. Boom. On the Jim Jones front, there was immediate quiet. The sound of the Dipset chain striking the floor was almost audible. Let's now discuss what contributed to the brutality of this live stream moment. Nas wasn't the only one showing off his lyrical superiority. It was the ease with which he destroyed Jim's whole identity without ever speaking. He dissected it in detail. Nas received decades for legacy. Nas has hits and classics. Influence on culture. Nas contributed to the definition of the sound that men like Jim appropriated. Then he gave the night's coldest line, like a genuine surgeon of shade. A hook written by someone else marked the pinnacle of Jim's career. I compose eulogies, not jingles. Not many, and it didn't even get messy at this point. No, that was only the first scene. Since Nas was content with the lyrical open heart surgery as he laid back, Benzino filled in after the performance. I've been holding back on saying this for years, and you could see the smile on his face. There was a lot of energy. Look, I've been in this business long enough to know who's real and who's reality TV, he continued, leaning into the microphone. The comments section erupted at that point. Jim Jones, he's VH1, not hip-hop. Jim was just grilled. Cut the stream off. I can't get over this, bro. Since Kim wore pink, this is Dipset's worst defeat. The stream had descended into complete anarchy by this time. As if their lives depended on it, fans were screen filming, headlines were being prepared by blogs, and it was already being dubbed the year's worst by Twitter. However, let's not pretend that this happened suddenly. For some time, the animosity between Jim and Nas has been simmering beneath the surface. That silent gap in hip has always existed. Hop. The world's Najas versus the Jims. The authors versus the hustlers. The thinkers versus the screamers. Jim Jones has always placed a strong emphasis on street cred, fashion, persona, and viral events. Feel sick. He was included in the cut. Constructing empires and remaining silent until a microphone is called for. It felt more like a history lesson than a CD when that moment occurred on a random Tuesday night livestream. It was as if the teacher had finally stood up in the middle of the class and declared, "All right, enough cloning. Don't misunderstand. Let's talk about actual music." Jim attempted to defend himself. Yes, he did try. He leaped into the stream, with his typical vigor, loud, lively, and full of hold-up, nah energy. However, it was too late. The audience has shifted. The story had changed. Additionally, he appeared more like a man attempting to swim in his own ego than a rapper. This concludes the first portion. Because Jim was trying to get better and defend his reputation at the same time, and win the audience back to his cause, Nas unleashed yet another verbal bomb that put an end to it all. And that is precisely where we start the video. In front of a live audience, Jim Jones was clearly shaken and frantically trying to keep. The audience physically flinched when the live stream chat erupted. L plus ratio plus cooked, one fan said, while another said, "Bro just got hit with a lyrical obituary." It wasn't even Nas. If that wasn't enough, Nas leaned in once more and dropped this atomic line. "Your entire discography is what I skipped through to get to the feature." Battle rap was poetic retribution delivered on a plate via live stream. Game over. But hold on, this is hip-hop, and when it rains, it pours. Enter the phony investigative leaks, which in a matter of minutes leaked direct messages. Industry insiders and anonymous insiders began to appear. One so-called insider, who will name anonymous ANR, leaked a series of purported texts between Jim Jones and several executives in which he was essentially pleading for a WA versus fight against NAS to demonstrate his cultural worth. These reports caused this whole conflict to go from heated to downright nuclear. "Let me get nauseous," the messages said. "Bring the streets. I had the crowd. I'll shake it up. He's too quiet." According to the source, executives abandoned Jim on read. There was no answer, no approval, just quiet, which only made his public humiliation worse. He attempted to create a moment and was abandoned by the very people he believed would support him, but never thels bocos more juicy. According to another fabricated claim, Jim Jones spent more than $100,000 on PR, TikTok influencers, and streaming farms in an attempt to increase his visibility after the live stream became viral and backfired. The reported invoice breakdown included $20,000 for phony let that sink in. He received $15,000 for reaction videos defending him, $30,000 for streaming boosts for his most recent track, and $35,000 for a crisis management team that, insiders claim, just advised him to shut down and pray. In an attempt to clean up a digital beatdown he entered on his own, this man allegedly lowered the price of a condo in Midtown. Meanwhile, Nas was already logged off, quietly sipping tea, like a retired samurai who had just cleaned blood off his sword, and the public's response was harsh. Twitter timelines became Jim Jones was just a guest in a Nazi, and still got evicted, was one of the phony viral tweets that appeared on digital graveyards and meme pages. That realization that yelling Ballin won't keep you from becoming Ether Red. Charlemagne, the god supposedly said on The Breakfast Club. Jim had a midlife crisis in real time. Thus his next mixtape had best be named Apology Letter Volume 1. Even celebrities joined in, or at least the ones that were supposed to pretend to do so for this script. Joe Button never wants to miss a messy moment. Fake posted, "This is why you stay in your lane." Nas entered like a god and left like a ghost. It was stunning. Lyrical assisted suicide was what that was. The most scathing phony answer, however, came from Nas's purported ex, who was apparently a fake, who claimed that Nas didn't even blink. Jim makes arguments as a man who still compensates for studio time. Oh, let's now discuss Jim's attempted return. Because he wasn't going to accept the loss in silence, as is customary. The following morning, he apparently went live from his car, because, of course, he was wearing sunglasses indoors and using the most overused term in hip-hop damage control history to address his followers personally. You are all aware of it. There are only lessons, not losses. I'm still outside. Bro, you're still outside. The streets are now urging you to return inside and reconsider some of your decisions. The drama didn't end there, though the fans dug in. Previously released footage of Jim making fun of criticizing Talib Kweli, disparaging K. Razwan and claiming, in a previous interview, that Illmatic was overhyped, among other tales, exaggerated. Oh, you mean the record that changed hip-hop's lyrical landscape all by itself? These resurfaced footage fueled the flames and further polarized the public against Jim. For many, this was more than a one-night roast. It was the result of Jim finally making money after years of being looked down upon by the hip-hop scene. In the 48 hours following the livestream, Jim's streams reportedly decreased by 27%, according to purported Spotify sources. Meanwhile, there was a reported 36% increase in Nas's streams. Fans are paying homage to the craft of mature demolition by replaying Ether, Stillmatic, and Magic 2. The funniest fake event was a meme that went viral, including a Dipset chain with a for sale sign and the statement, "Available now, slightly used, comes with emotional value." One fictitious fan page even commented, "You came for a king. You left with a crown made of L's. Baggage." Where does Jim Jones stand now? Musically humbled, publicly bruised, and digitally clowned. His supporters are attempting to twist it. His group is in a panic, and the culture as a whole has already moved on to Nas, counting residuals while consuming his green drink. Because the consequences takes a more severe turn just as Jim makes one more attempt to save his reputation. The fallout from this live feed gets even worse in the future, with fictitious legal threats and business sponsors withdrawing. Video. Jim Jones logs back on, clearly exhausted. Hoodie Up is trying to give off an air of indifference, but it's not working, and I'm suffering, buddy. He begins with the traditional line for damage control. You all exaggerating the size of this. I'm not even bothered. I continue to earn money. What did the culture hear, though? Stop, please. Today, I've shed 3 tears, and I long for the past. Because the fallout had already started while Jim was out here attempting to minimize it. First, let's talk about the phony industry blowback. One unnamed executive at a big label claimed that Jim had a scheduled engagement at a large within 24 hours of the live feed. A festival, such as Rap Royalty Reloaded, was subtly removed off the schedule. Why? Look, our insider says, we booked him out of nostalgia. Following that live broadcast, everyone we received negative press. No one wants to watch a meme attempt to make the news. It went beyond festivals. The Jim was supposedly negotiating with a phony footwear brand. A personalized Dipset is awesome. Collab reportedly failed as well. Because of this, Nas's followers swamped the brand's page with quotes like, "Don't let this man put his name on anything with legacy and clown emojis, unless you're winning. Corporate sponsors dislike scandal." And Jim was losing hard at the moment. Then the legal threats started to circulate. Unverified, certainly fabricated sources claim that Jim's legal team considered sending Nas a marine fist. For what purpose? It was hazy there. It was over defamation, according to some. Others referred to it as humiliation in public. Jim is suing for damages after catching a lyrical fade on livestream? Said one viral meme. Fans knew precisely what it meant when Nas tweeted a photo of a chessboard without a message. And he didn't even was altered. That Nas wasn't even stating facts, and that the internet distorted everything. And then, hey, error number 57. Reddit threads went viral, YouTube commentary channels had a field day. Twitter became a battleground of clips. Perhaps, the biggest blow of all came from the hip-hop community itself. Rappers who previously shared stages with Jim Jones contributed to a viral film called Nas Violates Jim Jones frame-by-frame analysis, which received over 2 million views in only 3 days. Fake quotes began to appear everywhere. Pusha T allegedly. Respect to Jim, but sometimes you have to know when to log off and learn. now either silent or suddenly riding the Nas train. Styles P. Jim attempted to out-rap Nas like a lawnmower attempting to outrun a Tesla. The loop incident was undoubtedly a hoax. Jim writes captions, whereas Nas writes novels. Let's talk about the financial repercussions. It was evident that the culture had taken sides, and Jim wasn't on the winning side. According to fictitious insider sources, Jim's most recent song, Rush Out Post-Live Dream, as a comeback anthem, failed miserably. One source was cited as stating, "We gave it a test push, but listeners kept skipping it after the first verse." DSPs allegedly removed it from popular playlists within 48 hours, according to the same complaint. Jim tried to promote the single on TikTok for up to $50,000, employing dancers, influencers, and even a hashtag Jones Revenge movement, which flopped horribly, while Nas's catalog had a boom, with Spotify reporting a phony 41% increase in Nas-related streams and Illmatic's vinyl sales inexplicably. Part that hurts the most is that fans began urging Jim Jones to formally retire not as a joke, but as a show of mercy. Yes, even the 18th anniversary release, for 2 days in a row. Hashtags such as hashtag respectfully retired Jimmy, hashtag DIPSET, done and hashtag Jim Jones vs. Quiet trended. Fake Twitter parodies appeared, including verified individuals, and were crying in the lobby at Dipset, refused. Jim Jones should have just dropped a cookbook and let the mic go at this point. But in the midst of all this mayhem, live streaming, lost sponsorships, and digital dragging, Jim had one last move. And oh, it was desperate to reunite Dipset for the culture and regain relevance. Jim allegedly sought out to Cameron, yes, the same Cameron with whom he has been on and off again in reaction to a fictitious leak, ghosted him. According to a phony insider, Cam has been waiting for this man to get fired for years. This was silent, sweet retaliation. What's left? A rapper who made fun of the wrong legend. A fan base divided between laughing at a collapse and defending a legacy. A live stream that turned into a digital grave. An ass sitting in quiet like a proud sensei who just told the world, don't come for a king unless you're a Beck, as this wasn't just an insult or even a beef, but rather a time of reckoning, cultural reset, and a reminder that respect is earned. They were wearing armor made of classics. And Nashev paid in. Then, the video of this story ends. So, the dust has settled. Or has it? Because after seeing Jim Jones' transformation into a live stream warning, we saw a man go from being homeless to requesting that the video be removed in less than 48 hours, a speed run to irrelevance. If we have ever seen one, but the true question is, will he recover or simply fade into meme history? Perhaps, just perhaps, this was what upcall hip-hop needed. Perhaps now, rappers will reconsider their approach to a lyrical legend with a 30-year track record and a following that still cites Matic like a Bible. Perhaps Jim will finally take a lengthy break from live streaming and launch Ballin, but broken, a podcast, who knows? But here's what we do know. Nas didn't simply win. He reminded everyone what true legacy looks like. Calm, collected, and without drama or shouting. We now pass it over to you, the true judges of the culture. Was Jim out of pocket? Did Nas do it? Quiet destruction. And to be honest, that's more gangster than anything Jim has yelled into a microphone since 2006. Went too far. Do you believe Jones can recover from this fiery mess? Let us know in the comments below. We're keeping an eye on you. Please like, share, and subscribe, because, believe us, this story isn't finished. Not in this field. Not with such inflated egos, and most definitely not when live feeds are a steal unbound. Till the next time. Maintain your keeps your lips shut and your bars up, because you can never tell when Nas will log back in.